Hello, and welcome back to AdamBobrowConnect, the channel where you email me and we connect. I'm really excited because there's been more table tennis internationally to watch recently. I've learned more about the world ranking system. There are changes being made all the time because the situation in the world keeps things a bit unpredictable. It's tough to have a regular competing schedule, and therefore adjustments need to be made in the world rankings and how they work to make sure that they're as fair as possible. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see all the movement that comes of all this international competition. Other than that, I'm excited to be connecting with friends and being in touch with the community, so I think it's a good time to get into the email. Hi Adam, thank you for keeping popularizing of table tennis for all the world. What is your top 3 players of all times? What criteria of playing quality you think are important? Okay, top 3 players of all time. I'm going to separate it into men's and women's. It's a very emotional conversation for many, but you asked me my opinion, so Ma Long without a doubt, the greatest we've seen, the most dominant player, the most impressive, celebrated, accomplished player that has ever lived. And it's not going to be a clear list for me other than Ma Long, who for me is the Shawshank Redemption of table tennis players, meaning undisputedly the greatest. Jan-Ove Waldner is my personal favorite player, had creativity and skills like you wouldn't believe, and was just an absolute pleasure to watch. Really a mastermind of the sport, did so many things that we see today, and people think chop block, they think Koki Niwa. Well, Waldner was a master of the chop block, and from snakes to lobs to tricks and all sorts of around the net shots. I mean, Waldner could do it all. So Waldner was amazing and one of the most influential players of the last, maybe the most influential player, period. I mean, in terms of setting tones, creating, tricks and trends, he was just so creative and incredible. I mean, Olympic gold medalist, 2-time world champion, one of which he didn't drop a single game, although games were to 21, 8 years after his 1989 world championships. That's incredibly impressive. It's tough to say. I mean, there are so many amazing players to watch and to have watched. I'm a major Shushin fan. I think Shushin is just incredible to watch. I love watching Koki Niwa. I mean, I was a big fan of Ma Lin and Wang Liqin growing up. China has produced so many incredible players from over the years. Liu Guoliang, Kong Linghui. Yeah, Ju Se-hyuk, amazing to watch. Schlager, the list goes on and on. Samsonov, Vladi. I mean, now Timo Boll is another one that I think I'd have to stop on and say Timo's quite special. Timo, at 41 years old currently, is still one of the few players who is expected to beat the Chinese outside of the top tier anytime he faces them. Not many players can sort of have that same level of expectation from the world. Timo's been world number 1 4 times. He still finds ways to disassemble his opponent. He just has no shortage of imagination. He's in outstanding physical shape. He's fast, he's humble, he's creative, from hand switches to chops to lobs and chop blocks and fanning forehands and around the net shots. I mean, another player who can do anything and is constantly reinventing himself, yet acts like he's just another person in the playing hall. I mean, as humble as can be. And so personality, playing style, and accomplishments all, Timo Boll has just been a very noteworthy player. The 3 greatest of all time, that's a very tricky thing to measure as the game has changed a lot over the years, and you could be as dominant as Victor Barna was, in the, 30s and 40s. Yeah, it's a different game with equipment, I guess, ever since Sato and the sandwich rubber came into play. So for me, once you could really spin the ball, it made things a lot more interesting. Yeah, on the men's side, those are the 3 I'd like to identify anyway, or take time, I guess. Ma Long, Waldner, and Timo Boll. Let's see, on the women's side, I mean, Deng Yaping is one of the most inspiring stories I've ever heard. And again, you had Rozianu back in the day, Romania's star, who was world champion multiple times over. I forgot if it was 5 in a row, 6 in a row, but 5 out of 6 years, something crazy like that, which is pretty unheard of. Deng Yaping, the little giant, was 7.5 years at world number 1. She was about 4'11", 150 centimeters, maybe 149, something in that range, and was told she was too small for for the Chinese national team. And so she worked like crazy to be the best she could possibly be and dominated the game. For me, that's just unbelievable. It's tough to match that. Zhang Yining was also incredible. Many consider her to be the most dominant woman, although with Deng Yaping's record, it's a tough act to follow, but definitely two of the best right there in the game. So many outstanding women to watch. You know, I love watching the chopping style. So Hitomi Sato, Han Ying, Sehyo Wan, all incredible players. Chun Meng and Sun Ying Xia, amazing. Chun Meng's another inspiring story. You know, in and out of world number 1 when her and Zhu Yuling were back and forth, and then pulled a hamstring and came back stronger than ever and dominated the game for years, was world number 1. And as I'm recording this message, she is, but volatile world ranking systems, so by the time this is published, who knows? Maybe it'll be Sun Ying Xia or someone else. I think Mima Ito is a very incredible and creative player. Quite an unusual style, despite being similar to that of Ai Fukuhara. I feel like the creativity factor and the variety of surprises in the service game, the receive game, and just side spin throughout. Mima Ito is fascinating to watch. Oh, which reminds me real quickly, back to the men. There are all these young up and coming players like Truls Morgard, you know, the LeBron brothers, Alexis and Felix. There are just so many cool, interesting players. The list goes on and on, but back to the women's side. I've been a big fan of Renata Strbikova from Czech Republic. Her style, I feel like, is a clear indicator of her personality on the court. She just seems so nonchalant. Whenever she would play, it was like nothing bothered her, and she was living in her own world. She would do the shots that she wanted to do. It must have been incredibly tough to coach her because it's like no one thinks quite like her, and that made her fascinating to watch. She did one of the craziest trick shots I've ever seen, pretty much improvised in the middle of an exhibition. It was like a competition where they were doing a few minutes. I think Waldner and Persson did one, and I forgot who else, but yeah, Renata Strbikova with Christina Todt together did this amazing exhibition, and it's tough to describe, but in short, Stribby trapped the ball on the table with her racket, so when it came down to bounce, it was like it never bounced. There was one contact, caught the ball right on the table, and then rolled it back and flipped it up to the other side of the racket over the net. Now, you have to imagine that it contacted the racket more than once, but in theory, this could happen, and I don't think anyone has the camera equipment currently, or did at the time, to show that it wasn't legal. I mean, that's how amazing this trick shot was. Like, technology could not keep up with it. So that's Renata Strbikova. You could find her on YouTube. Some of her best of compilations are incredible. I think I watched her in her last tournament before she retired, and she was giving trouble to the Chinese, even at nearly 40, as a player who, yeah, wasn't usually in the top 10 in the world to my knowledge. I'd have to look up her world's best ranking, but she was fascinating to watch. But yeah, I think Deng Yaping, Zhang Yining, Wang Nan were all incredible. Ding Ning, the most celebrated woman of the last decade for table tennis. So a lot of respect to a lot of different women. I think Liu Shiwen's story has been incredible and really fascinating to watch. And yeah, it's tough for me to put an absolute favorite anywhere in these, but I guess you've heard my opinions on that. In terms of what criteria of playing quality do I think is important, I think creativity, imagination, which I put closely together, being able to think of things and find solutions in situations that seem almost impossible. These are qualities that are very important. And adaptability, someone's ability to find new methods to bother the opponent or find escapes to, again, situations that seem nearly impossible, make anything possible, and is a key ingredient for a player to be excellent, to really not have a shortage of ideas when things aren't working for you, which as a professional, they often won't. So I love watching table tennis. There are tons and tons of names of players that I love to watch that I haven't mentioned that I think are incredible, noteworthy players. There are just so many, an endless list of absolutely admirable, breathtaking players out there that are excellent. So that's one of my favorite things about watching the sport. Anyway, great question. Thanks for asking. Hope you found that interesting, and hope you go YouTube these players and learn more about the ones you didn't know, or enjoy rewatching the ones you already did know about. And yeah, happy to address your questions. If you have other questions, they can be about table tennis, about life, about anything, send them in to AdamBobrowConnect at gmail.com, and hopefully we can connect soon. All right, thanks for everything, and hang in there, and as always, keep on ponging. Peace.